Welcome back to another daily Bible reading. I'm Jesse Nelson.
Edwin Jones.
We are the ministers here at Lenore City Church of Christ, and we are in Matthew chapter 8 and 9 today.
They probably are noticing that we're wearing our new uniforms for this.
Yes, we're doing these in the same day. Skipped yesterday. Eye was bothering me, but we'll leave all those details out. Anyway, we are in Matthew chapter 8 and 9, and because this is a longer reading, we're going to do a little less commentating today and more reading. One of the things we're trying to do, hopefully, as you watch us read and make comments, is that you are developing a good Bible reading process.
Yes, we want to get you into it, but we don't want to do it all.
Yeah, we're not going to answer every question, and we will skip things at times and not make comments on them. So if you wonder why, and if you have a question, ask us, and we actually do every Thursday an actual podcast where we will answer questions and we will talk about certain subjects and expand them, but that's not for this.
So feel free.
So you are reading Matthew chapter 8.
Okay,
is there any comments we want to make about what they're going to see here?
Yeah, we're coming out of Jesus' teaching aspect, a great sermon. We're going to get into some things that also deal with him being the Messiah, proving in miraculous ways he has to be who he says he is or he couldn't do this. So let's look at that.
All right.
When Jesus came down from the mountain, large crowds followed him, and a leper came to him and bowed down before him and said, "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." He's seen something here. Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him, saying, "I am willing, be cleansed." And immediately his leprosy was cleansed, and Jesus said to him, "Go tell no one, but go show yourself to the priest and present the offering that Moses commanded as a testimony to them." So, first of all, as a leper, he's supposed to not have anything to do with him. Jesus touched him. He's come to have some belief in Jesus that he's got powers, and indeed he has. And he tells him, follow the law of Moses. They're under the law of Moses. Go to the priest, do that. So he's perfectly in line with living within the context of the law of Moses, but he's showing that he's got something going for him that nobody else ever had.
Well, and part of Jesus' ministry here, his messianic life, is that he is going to be purifying people. You see, a leper would have been considered unclean.
Yes.
And
representing sin in some ways.
And he's making them clean. So, and he's going to the oppressed. So we're seeing a lot of this, Jesus prove of his messianic kingdomship.
Okay. And when Jesus entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him. Centurion is a key officer in the Roman army, sort of like a master sergeant or something in today's army. They're the ones who get things done. And when Jesus entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him, imploring him and saying, "Lord, my servant is lying paralyzed at home, fearfully tormented." Jesus said to him, "I will come and heal him." But the centurion said, "Lord, I am not worthy for you to come under my roof, but just say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I'm also a man under authority, and soldiers under me. And I say to this one, go, and he goes. And to another, come, and he comes. And to my slave, do this, and he does this." Now when Jesus heard this, he marveled and said to those who were following, "Truly I say to you, I have not found such a great faith with anyone in Israel. I say to you that many will come from the east and the west and recline at table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the sons of the kingdom will be cast out into the outer darkness, a place where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." And Jesus said to the centurion, "Go, it shall be done to you as you have believed." And the servant was healed that very moment. So, we got a Roman, a non-Jew, who sees something in Jesus that a lot of the Israelites were not seeing.
And the fact that this is coming on the cusp of the Sermon on the Mount, where he's speaking to Jews how they should have interpreted the law and how they should have been living, and now they're all seeing this non-Jew, I have not seen faith like in all of Israel. And what we're seeing is that Jesus is saying that this kingdom that's coming, that is being, it's come and coming, there's kind of this dual nature to it. It's not just for the Jew only, it's for all. And unfortunately, a lot of the Jews and the way the Jews established and did and taught things, it's going to be thrown out because it was useless.
It's isolated them from others.
Yeah.
Here's one of those others who has a greater faith than they do.
Yep.
So we need to be careful that we don't isolate ourselves, but try to be part of the bigger world community and letting Jesus be known.
But it's easier to be by ourselves.
I know. It's easier to condemn other people.
Yeah.
It's just such fun. When Jesus came into Peter's home, and we probably have discovered this, that's an interesting thing. He saw his mother-in-law lying sick in bed with a fever. So Peter was married, because you don't have a mother-in-law unless you're married.
Yep.
He touched her hand, and the fever left her, and she got up, and she waited on him. When evening had come, he thought, many were brought to him who were demon-possessed, and cast out spirits with a word, and he healed all who were ill. This was to fulfill what was spoken through Isaiah the prophet. He himself took our infirmities and carried away our diseases. Well, what's somebody's mother-in-law stuck up over here in a house? Well, she's somebody's mother-in-law. She's a person. He heals her. And how long did it take for her to recuperate?
Immediately.
Immediately. And what's she doing? She's getting back up and continuing with life. So
she does that, and then she begins to serve.
Yeah.
I find that interesting, the parallel between the people who are healed and immediate action and immediately serving or immediately announcing and talking about Jesus, what has been done. Parallel in our own faith. When Jesus does something for us, saves us, what should be our response the rest of our life?
Right. To try to have, and I'm not opposed to this, I've had them and plan to have more, personal evangelism classes. Christianity is personal evangelism, where we talk what's happened to us and what we have because of Jesus. If we can't talk about it, you got to ask yourself, maybe I don't realize how important it is.
Yeah. But as you see, this was spoken about in the prophet Isaiah. He's fulfilling, proving his work.
And people are coming to be healed.
Yep.
All sorts of diseases and demon possessions, and bam, bam, just like that. Well, now when Jesus saw a crowd around him, he gave orders to depart to the other side of the sea. Then a scribe came to him and said, "Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go." Jesus said to him, "The foxes have holes, the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." Another of his disciples came to him and said, "Lord, permit me to first go and bury my father." But Jesus said to him, "Follow me and allow the dead to bury the dead." So here's a couple of cases where people are coming up to him and they're wanting to follow him. And Jesus lets the first one know, you need to understand something about what following is. I don't have a house to live in while I'm out on this itinerant ministry. It's going to be rough conditions. Are you up for that? And so that one.
Well, a lot of times following a rabbi as well, when you pick the rabbi who you think this guy's going to make it in life, he's going to be prestigious. I'm going to, just by being underneath him,
hanger on,
you're going to be blessed. This is the Son of God. This is the Son of Man.
Yeah.
Obviously, if I follow him, there's going to be a lot of return value physically.
Say, where are we sleeping tonight? Well, right here.
and Jesus disappoints them. He disappoints them and says, listen, I'm not going to have a place to lay my head. This ministry is not what you think it is. It's tough. It's rough. Are you ready? If you follow me, you're in for the long haul.
Yes.
Yeah.
And some of the customs of the day are going to have to be put to the side, as we find. Let me go and bury my father. Well, his father would have been, if you're responsible for the death of your father, there are all kind of things that have to be put in order, the funeral and everything in future. So you've got things to do back home. And Jesus said, those things aren't as important as following me.
Yeah.
Which do you want to choose?
If you're putting off following Jesus for all these other things,
There's always another thing.
there's always another thing.
When he got in the boat, his disciples followed him, and behold, there arose a great storm on the sea, covered the boat with waves, and Jesus himself was asleep. And they came to him and woke him up, saying, "Save us, Lord, we're perishing." He said to them, "Why are you afraid, you men of little faith?" Then he got up, rebuked the winds and the sea, and it became perfectly calm. The men were amazed and said, "What kind of man is this, that even the winds and the waves obey him?"
Yeah. I'm going to read something from Psalm 107
Okay.
and show how similar it is to what you just read.
Okay. Good.
So in 23 it says, this is Psalm 107. This is not Matthew. This is not. Some went down to the sea in ships, doing business on great waters. They saw the deeds of the Lord, his wondrous works in the deep. For he commanded and raised the stormy wind, which lifted up the waves of the sea. They mounted up to heaven. They went down to the depths. Their courage melted away in their evil plight. They reeled and staggered like drunken men and were at their wits' end. So they're realizing there's this storm, and
They're afraid.
Then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and he delivered them from their distress. He made the storm be still, and the waves of the sea were hushed. Then they were glad that the waters were quiet. He brought them to their desired haven. Let them thank the Lord for his steadfast love, for his wondrous works to the children of man. And so when you're reading, who is this man that even the winds and sea obey him? in Psalm 107 in Old Testament, he was called the Lord of Storms.
Exactly.
He could calm storms. And so Jesus is proving he's more than just a man.
Yes.
He is a man who has the power of God.
Exactly. So he's so tied into the old covenant and the things that are said about the Lord. And he's just, his life is immersed in bringing those things out and showing that he is the one who fulfills these things.
Amen.
When he came to the other side of the country of the Gadarenes, 2 men who were demon-possessed came out to meet him. They were coming out of the tombs. They were also extremely violent, and no one could pass by that way. And they cried out, saying, "What business do you have with each other, Son of Man, Son of God? For you have come here to torment us before the time."
Oh.
Now there was a herd of many swine feeding at a distance from them. The demons began to entreat him, saying, "If you are going to cast us out, send us into the herd of swine." And he said to them, "Go." And it came about, they went into the swine, and the whole herd rushed down the steep bank into the sea and perished in the waters. The herdsmen ran away and went to the city and reported everything, including what had happened to the demoniacs. And behold, the whole city came out to meet Jesus. And they saw him. They implored him to leave their region.
This is,
Interesting.
well, I mean, first, these 2 demons possess man. Obviously, there's demons who are possessing them, and they recognize Jesus as being the Son of God. And there's nothing about his appearance, obviously.
No.
So they're able to see
Something's going on in the spiritual realm.
that we can't see. And the fact that he has power over them, and they recognize that power
Just
over
like
them. And how many people today don't recognize as Jesus' power over their own life?
Exactly. Which they would consider to be small potatoes compared to casting out demons. Surely he can take care of that.
And as Jamin says, even the demons believe and shudder.
Yes.
And we see this here. And we ought to, we have this, a lot of times I like to focus on God the Father, Jesus as the elder brother. He's this compassionate, merciful, and he is, but he's also the Lord.
Yes, absolutely, positively. Nobody's going to mess with him.
Yeah, and, there are these, get away, flee,
Yeah.
get out,
Yeah,
get away from us.
Leave us alone.
And, and that's the thing about the day of the Lord, and going back to Malachi, it will be a pruning. It will be for those who are not ready, those who are not wanting to submit to the will of God, it's not going to be a good and fun day.
No, if Jesus lives in us,
Yeah.
whatever's out there is going to be afraid of him.
Yeah, and even the people became afraid of Jesus.
Yes,
Ask him,
they-
leave
well,
our
isn't that
region.
interesting?
Leave our region.
Yeah, you'd think they say, "Come in," but that was their livelihood, those pigs.
Yeah.
And they're not interested in him being the Lord, which has tremendous implications beyond selling a few pigs. He's messed with their economic status.
Is there some irony about Jesus saying, "Don't cast pigs before swine," and Matthew has this pretty close to that parallel?
Yeah,
This
yeah.
pig story.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
All right, Matthew chapter 9. Let's move along. And getting into the boat, he crossed over and came to his own city. And behold, some people were brought to him, a paralytic lying on a bed. And when Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralytic, "Take heart, my son, your sins are forgiven." Now, this is probably the same story of where they brought him down through a roof,
Yeah,
seeing
probably
their
so.
faith, or something similar.
So, yeah.
But we got to remember, all the miracles that we read about are not all the miracles that happened.
No.
And there wasn't just one paralytic.
No.
These things happen over and over. As John would say, you
Yes.
couldn't contain it in books.
That's right.
The amount of things that Jesus did. When Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralytic, "Take heart, my son, your sins are forgiven." And behold, some of the scribes said to themselves, "This man is blaspheming." And any other man would have been, by the way. But Jesus, knowing their thoughts, said, "Why do you think evil in your hearts? For which is easier to say, 'Your sins are forgiven,' or to say, 'Rise and walk'? But that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins." And Son of Man being a huge Daniel
Yes.
7. But also Son of David. We've seen Son of David, Son of God, Son of Man. He is hitting these, all these major symbols that the Messiah was going to be.
That Son of Man thing is his humanity, it's his troubles that human beings suffer, it's his glorification. He uses that for all those things.
But yet, he does not lack the authority,
No.
though he is in man.
He's a Son of Man, but
Yeah. Rise, pick up your bed, go home. He rose, went home. When the crowd saw it, they were afraid, and they glorified God, who had given such authority to men. They were afraid and glorified.
And
There's kind of
glorified.
that, what the Old Testament would say, fear the Lord.
Yes.
And there's that reverence, that authority. When you see the authority of Jesus in action,
Shakes you up a bit.
it does shake you up, but it ought to lead you to glorify him.
You ought not to run off or ask him to leave. You
Yeah.
need to stay.
You want to be under that authority, because when you're under that authority,
All's
it's
gonna be well.
comfort. There's comfort knowing that he is in control.
I love it when he says, which is easier to say. He
Yeah.
really knows how to stick it to those people.
Which is easier, you know?
I'll do the one that you, yeah.
And the one you can see, and he's demonstrating what they can see by what they can't see. You know, the sins are forgiven.
Bless their hearts.
Now we're going to call Matthew a tax collector. As Jesus passed on from there, he saw a man, Matthew, sitting at a tax booth. And he said to him, follow me, and he rose and followed him. Now I want to make a quick note. If you've not seen The Chosen, the way that they display or portray Matthew, I think, is just beautiful. And so watch it. But anyway, that's side note. One day we'll have to watch these episodes.
Yeah, we will.
And Jesus reclined at the table in the house. Behold, many tax collectors and sinners came and were reclining with Jesus and his disciples.
Wow, he's going to get some people that he really needs to get with and help to find salvation by doing this.
But the Pharisees saw it.
Yeah.
And instead of seeing Jesus as being the arbiter of salvation for the lost,
These people are going to have a chance.
no, they don't care about people. Why does your teacher eat with sinners and tax collectors? That ought to be who the message is for, but you know, what do I know? But when he heard it, he said, those who are well have no need of physician, but those who are sick. And what he's not saying is the Pharisees are well.
No.
He's not saying they're well. That's why
They
he's not
think they're
coming
well.
to them. They think they're well. Sick, go to doctors. Sick, seek. That's why it's been all these people who are seeking Jesus. At this moment, we're seeing Jesus isn't really going to them. They're coming to him.
Which is what you do for a doctor when you think you're sick.
Yeah.
These guys, no, they have no idea how spiritually corrupt they are.
And 13 really, this would hurt. Go and learn what this means.
Oh, my.
I desire mercy and not sacrifice, for I came to call the righteous but sinners. He just compared them with what Saul did when he was trying to make excuses before Samuel, the King Saul, not Saul, Paul, King Saul back in 1 Samuel, of when he did not fully obey God. And Samuel says it's better what? To obey and not sacrifice.
Yes, a powerful moment there when Samuel comes to Saul. But it's that principle is always there, and he really lays it down here at a great moment.
And so, as we always do, they deflect. The disciples of John came to him saying, why do we and the Pharisees fast, but your disciples not fast? And so, even John's own disciples, you know, this is not just a Pharisee and scribe thing where they're not understanding. There are times where Jesus' disciples don't understand, Gentiles don't understand. Nobody ever really understands.
There's something unique about Jesus.
Yeah. Why do they fast and your disciples do not? Jesus said to them, can wedding guests mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? And the fact that he's the bridegroom. The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast. No one puts a piece of unshrunk cloth of an old garment, for the patch tears away from the garment, and a worse tear is made. Neither is new wine put into old wineskins. If it is, the skins burst, and the wine is spilled, and the skins are destroyed. But new wine is put into fresh wineskins, so both are preserved. Interesting that they are still, this fasting, interesting the way Matthew orders all this. He's talked about fasting back in Matthew chapter 6. When you fast, don't let it seem before men. Well, they're asking, we're noticing your disciples aren't even fasting.
Yeah, even fasting, yes.
And Jesus kind of turns it first. He says, there's no need to fast right now while I'm here.
You'd think they'd learn after a while.
Yeah. But he's also giving us an understanding that the way that you see religion, that old wineskin, it can't be put into what I'm bringing.
The Jewish way of putting it together, it can't hold it.
Yeah, yeah. And so, the illustration, we don't really understand that because we don't use wineskins anymore. But if you had an old dried up wineskin that's been used and used and used and used, when you put new wine in it, what does it do? It expands, but when it can't expand anymore.
No, it's just old and dry.
It'll burst. And so Jesus is bringing something new. You're going to have to open up into some new ways of thinking about things.
But people, when we get to Luke, we'll mention this again.
Yeah.
But he has a third thing here. When they serve wine and new wine, the old's good enough. And that's why people are, we're comfortable. We're in our comfort zone. This is good enough.
Yeah. Jesus wants to get you out of your comfort zone. All right. This is, we're going to stick with this part of the story, and when we get into how Luke brings it up, we'll talk about that later. But if you know, you know. If you don't, just keep reading. While he was saying these things to them, behold, a ruler came in and knelt before him, saying, My daughter has just died, but come and lay your hand on her, and she will live. Jesus rose, followed him with his disciples. I find that even the rulers, when they are in need of something,
They're humbling themselves.
they're humbling themselves.
His sick child got to him.
Yep. He has an authority they don't have.
Yes.
Over life.
And he's not going
and
to play
death.
games with that when
No.
it's his child.
No. Behold, a woman, and Jesus rose, followed with his disciples. And behold, a woman who suffered from a discharge of blood for 12 years, hemorrhaging, came up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment. For she said to herself, if only I touch his garment, I will be made well. Just think about that faith for a moment. I think what you're seeing is humility and faith.
Yes.
She knows, as a woman, at least in this culture, what right does she have to go up to this man? Secondly, she's a sinner, recognizing her sin, recognizing her unworthiness. She's bleeding, so she's unclean.
She's unclean. She can make other people unclean. And she's outside the veil of everyday worship.
Do you think she's heard about the leper? Because in other stories we get that these lepers are to be quiet.
Maybe there's hope for a person like me.
But what do they not do? They go and tell anyway.
Yeah.
And so I find it interesting. And Jesus, 22, seeing her said, take heart, daughter, your faith has made you well.
Daughter, she's part of Judaism. She's not an outsider. She's a family member.
I love that. And instantly, the woman was made well. Instantly. Now, what we find out later is instantly when she touched the cloak. But Jesus already, I think we're getting some insight here. 23, when Jesus came to the ruler's house, so this was just kind of on his way, passing by, and he came to the ruler's house, he saw the flute players and the crowd making commotion. He said, go away, for the girl is not dead but sleeping, and they laughed at him. But when the crowd had been put out, he went in, took her by the hand, and the girl arose. And the report of this went through all that district. Now, so was she really sleeping or was she dead? And if sleeping can be
look at it.
In Jesus' mind,
she's asleep.
Her spirit has not departed the body, and Jesus knows that.
It's as easy for him to raise the dead as it is for mama or daddy to get the kid up in the morning.
Yeah, there's a lot, man. And it doesn't compare. And modern day miracles are nowhere near what Jesus did and his disciples did.
This girl's dead.
They were immediate. Everybody knew it. These were public. These weren't small and closed in this room at this little service, this little meeting. It was
retired mourners and everything. And everybody is so sure that she's dead. They're laughing at him when he says otherwise.
And the flute players that was basically a processional. They would have played a funeral.
Professional mourners, if you will.
Yeah. All right. 27. Still have several verses left. Jesus passed on from there. 2 blind men following him, crying, saying, have mercy on us, son of David.
Messianic title.
And that's what Matthew's doing. Once again, and I got to bring this up. Matthew is literally hitting all of these Jewish customs, all these Jewish things that Jews would have recognized. Why Mark has to expand them is because he's talking to Gentiles.
Exactly.
They go, what does this have to do with anything?
Yeah, well, let me tell you.
Jews know. Having mercy on us, son of David. When he entered the house, the blind men came to him and said, Jesus said to them, do you believe that I am able to do this? They said to him, yes, Lord. He touched their eyes, saying, according to your faith, be it done to you. And their eyes were open, and Jesus sternly warned them, see that no one knows about it, but they went away, spread his fame through all the district. And there's this faith aspect, and here's where I get out of this. As much power and authority that Jesus has is only accessible to us when we have faith that Jesus is able to do stuff.
Largely, we've got to make a connection. Sometimes that's used by fake healers to say, well, it didn't work because you didn't have faith.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, he generally works with people who believe and trust that he's got something.
Yeah. And that's like prayer. When James says, when you pray, do not pray with doubt. Do not doubt. Or you're like, you're an unstable mind,
Exactly.
Unstable man, unstable in all your ways. That if you are praying, that first of all, for you to pray for God to do something, you have to believe that he's doing it. If you
Otherwise,
don't, then
forget it. Yeah,
it's like me going to you, Edwin, hey, I need $1 million. You want to give it to me? I got to believe that you have it and that you're able to give it.
That's why you're not coming to me.
That's why I'm not coming. It'd be kind of silly.
It would. Unless you're not getting it anyway.
I do silly things all the time. As they were going away, behold, a demon-oppressed man was brought to him. And when the demon had been cast out, the mute man spoke, and the crowds marveled, saying, never was anything like this seen in Israel. But the Pharisees said, he cast out demons by the prince of demons.
Whoa.
So right at the end of this entire one after the other, Jesus is proving his power over life, over demons, over death.
And common people are getting it.
Common people are getting it. And the Pharisees, the only argument they have is the power that he's using is not of God.
That's all they got left.
It's of Satan.
They can't deny the miracles.
Yeah. And Jesus is actually going to say this later, that when you blaspheme, this is blaspheming of the Holy Spirit, is when you take his miracles and you attribute it to, rather than the Spirit.
Incontrovertible things from God, you say, are from the devil.
Yeah.
Oops.
And you'll never convert somebody, no matter what miracles.
That's a swine to not put the pearls before.
Yeah, and no matter what Jesus does, if they believe he's doing it by Satan, all his wonders are actually not wonders at all.
They get more and more upset with him the more he does.
Yeah. So verse 35, and Jesus went through all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom. That's what we've been at. Healing every disease and every affliction. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them because they were harassed.
You misread that, Jesse. He was upset with them because they're a bunch of sinners and they deserve whatever they get.
I was like, man, what?
No, wait a minute. You are right.
you got me nervous. Well, and that's the thing. The compassion aspect of the gospel. It is not for who we deem it for. It is for all. And we sing that song. The gospel is for who?
All.
It's for all. And all means?
All.
All. All right. Because they're harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. There's another thing. A lot of times Jesus has more interest in condemning those who are teaching the false things rather than those who are following him.
Little son about the net cast. Because these people should have been helped by their shepherds.
Yeah.
And in fact, not only were they not helped, they were made worse off.
And when a lot of them are illiterate, a lot of them are completely relying upon the Pharisees, scribes, and the priests to be their teachers.
Right.
So whatever they say must be.
I know.
Must be.
So those people are kind of, in a sense, at their mercy, and Jesus has compassion on them.
Absolutely, and as we ought to as well. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. There it is. The harvest, you can find people anywhere, but the people who are actually willing to go out and to talk to these people and to live the kingdom life like Jesus lived, very few.
And I think that's a very good point, because it's not just being out, it's how you're out.
Yeah.
How Jesus was out attracted people because of his compassion and his godliness and his love. If we're going to be going out, we're going to attract people, sometimes people that wouldn't otherwise be attracted, just because we're living like him.
38 is going to make an ironic statement to from what we usually say and pray to what Jesus is asking us to pray.
Okay.
Therefore, pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest. Normally, we do this. Pray that the doors be open. And they go to Revelation 3, that God opened doors. But a lot of times we ask for open doors, and Jesus is saying, no, pray that you send out.
Let's just get somebody out there.
Rather than sitting and waiting for people to come to you, you go to them.
We've got church buildings, for goodness sakes.
Pray that someone comes to church today and I can talk to them. No, pray that you, as the church, go out. And as you're out, talk to these
as
people.
you're going, wherever you are, there you are, and be your Jesus self.
Yeah, so chapters 8 and 9, Jesus has proven his authority to be the Messiah.
Again, yes.
And ultimately, if you're going to be his disciple, you need to live like Jesus, go out like Jesus. Now, we can't heal and do the miracles, but we can help.
We can show compassion.
We can show compassion and mercy and ultimately bring the gospel with us.
And we cannot have that Pharisaic attitude that puts off people and that distances us from common folk, if you will. We need to be out there because we're just one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, there's chapters 8 and 9, and we did that under 30 minutes and 30 seconds.
A record.
So we love you.
Yes, we do.
We appreciate you, and God bless.